All right, so we'll get underway with our next session in our day 3 of the Catholic Learning Online Summit. My name is Ben Woods. I'm from the Catholic Education Diocese of Wollongong, and I welcome with us today Brendan Mitchell from ClickView, who's going to be leading us through some of the advanced features of ClickView. And welcome everyone to this session. Hopefully you have had a chance to be into some of the other sessions over the week. We're only halfway through. There's more to come. So as we do with all of our sessions, I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander nations who long before us have lived, loved and raised their children on this land. We also acknowledge all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families in our community and acknowledge their physical and spiritual connections to their land. We come together today to learn, to share, and to journey together. And as we gather in prayer today, Alicia Baisley from ClickView was going to present, but unfortunately she has had to go to hospital, so hopefully she's okay, so we'll keep her in our thoughts as we pray. So Father of all, you gave us the dreaming. You have spoken to us through our beliefs. You then made your love clear to us in the person of Jesus. We thank you for your care. You own us. You are our hope. Make us strong as we face the problems of change. We ask you to help the people of Australia to listen to us and respect our culture. Make the knowledge of you grow strong in all people so that you can be at home in us and we can make a home for everyone in our land. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. So as with all of our sessions, this session is being recorded and will be uploaded to the website onto the resources page following the event, probably sometime later tonight as we edit and upload these things, along with any resources that we can put together for you or that have been shared with us by ClickView. We'll put them on there. Throughout the session, if you would like to utilize the chat function to ask questions, that would be great. That just maintains the flow as we go through, and I'll monitor that and try and answer any of those questions, and any that I can't answer, I will throw to Brendan to be able to answer as well.
Ben, you've also got me here, Jack from ClickView. I'll help with the chat as well.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Jack. I'll make you a co-host so you'll be able to also jump in if you need to. So we do have Brendan and Jack from ClickView. And as I said, filling in for Alicia. And I will throw over to them to get started. Thanks, guys.
Brilliant. Ben, thank you very much for the welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're not losing too much of your sanity at the moment with everything that's happening. I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 5-month-old here at home, and all I can say is thank goodness for ABC Kids and Disney Plus. Yeah, that's the thing that's getting us through at the moment here. Just sharing my screen, and I think I've shared the wrong one. Let me try and get the right one up, sorry. That one there. Share. All right. Is there a ClickView window coming through on your screen?
Yes.
Yep, excellent. Alrighty, so what we're going to focus on today is going the next step with ClickView, following on from the previous sessions. So in this particular session, we're going to talk through some of the options that you have to create your own instructional videos, options for uploading those into ClickView and then making them interactive, and some of the pedagogical implications of having your own instructional content. So there will be some assumptions throughout this session. If you do have any questions on anything that I touch on or mention, but I'm not sort of going into detail about, please do put those questions in the chat bar. Jack and Ben will do their best to respond, and we'll hopefully have some time for a bit of Q&A at the end as well. So the first thing that I want to talk about is obviously making your own material. So every teacher in their workspace has a button in the top left-hand corner that says upload a video. So every teacher does have the capability to create their own content and upload that into ClickView. So this actually opens up a whole range of possibilities. I'm a big believer that anything on that bottom rung of Bloom's taxonomy can be recorded, do it once, and you've then got that as a resource in the long term. Because even after we get back to the classroom and things return to normal, whenever that ends up being, you are always going to have kids who are off sick, or they're off at a sporting event or a creative arts event or whatever it may be, or kids who need to hear or see something 2 or 3 or 4 times for it to really sink in. You're always going to have that need to have that instructional material supporting you so that you are not tied up having to repeat particular instructions or repeat demonstrations necessarily over and over and over. So we're going to talk through some of the pedagogical implications, and we'll go into a little bit more detail. What I want to do first, though, is just show you a few examples of some of these sorts of videos, just to get you thinking about some different ways, some different subject areas, different topics and concepts that you might apply this to. So let me just scroll down. Here's a few that I prepared earlier. So we're going to start with what we in New South Wales call kindergarten, prep for Queensland. I believe it's foundation for Victoria. Now, any video playback, of course, as I'm hoping you're all aware, is going to be jumpy. That's the nature of I'm streaming a video to my computer and then we're streaming it back to you. Zoom is not designed for streaming a video live, but I'm hoping that you can get a bit of a sense of what's happening in this video. All I've done here is I've held my phone over the top of a piece of paper. I've hit record on the camera as I normally would when I'm playing in the backyard with the kids, and I've done my letter formation. Really simple, low-level mechanical skill that is, fairly important for our students to learn. But I've now got that as a long-term resource. Now, I've just done a fairly basic ABC here. That could be any number of things. Capital letters, lowercase letters, words, you could, anything there that you're writing, you're modeling, you could record that once. Really low level. Most of you will have, I am assuming, most of you will have a smartphone in your pocket these days. They're pretty ubiquitous. And you can record that on your phone. Very simple. You don't necessarily have to have your face in the video. I know a lot of people get a little bit uncomfortable about that, but it does give you that option. So that's one example. All I've done is recorded a video on my phone. Another example is if we move through to this one here. Let me just mute this. So this is what's called a screencast. So there's lots of software that will allow you to record whatever is on your screen. Zoom does have that function, of course. The 2 pieces of software that I come across most commonly that are free, one is called Screencastify and the other one is called Screencast-O-Matic. Now, some dioceses, I believe, I understand rather, that they've actually rolled out Screencastify, I think it was, across the diocese. So if you're not sure if you have access to one of those already, I would suggest chatting with the relevant person in your diocese. I'm sure Ben would be able to let you know who that is in terms of the role that that person would hold. But what that does is allow me to record my computer screen. So in this case, I've got just a simple PowerPoint presentation. It's recording my webcam and my microphone. Obviously, I've just got the video muted at the moment. And it is literally just me talking to whatever is, in this case, about complex sentences, but whatever is on the particular slide. The idea of this is that the video is 3 minutes 48. It's a very, very basic introduction to sentence types, but I know that for the class that I had the year that I made this video, that's a 15-minute lesson, because there's going to be the knock at the door. There's going to be the, what about this? Oh, sir, I don't quite understand that. Can you explain this in a little bit more detail? Stop doing that. Get it? You've got all of those extraneous distractions that happen on a day-to-day basis in a normal classroom setting. Take all of that out, distill it down to just the pure teaching moment, and you've now got a very usable resource. So that's another example. That can be very simple to put together. I imagine that many of you will have PowerPoint decks for different topics tucked away already, ready to go, and you've got those there as well. Now, another option, so we've talked about 2 sort of theory type scenarios there. Another option is looking at some of the more practical things. Now, this example I'm going to show you is a woodworking video. It's a secondary video, but this could just as easily be fundamental movement skills for PE. It could be how to create secondary colors for visual arts. It could be talking about the difference between pictures in music. Anything that, again, is a physical, practical skill, record it once and you've got it. Again, for this video here, all I've done is I've held my phone up, I've hit record on the camera. The teacher, whose name is Jim, has done his demonstration. In this case, it's how to measure for woodwork. He's done his teaching. The video is 1 minute 11. But Jim has said that that's a 5 to 10 minute instruction in his class, because he'll have 30 students in the class, all trying to gather around the bench and look around each other and see what he's doing. And then again, you'll have all of your other interruptions, your distractions, and the students who need to hear it will see it multiple times. So there's a few examples of different ways that you could record, or different types of things that you might record there. So the very simple level, grab your phone out or your tablet, hit record on that. Or if you're feeling a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more technological, grab Screencastify or Screencast-O-Matic and put together a screencast. Record your computer screen with a PowerPoint or something similar. So that's the basics. If people would like me to, I can come back to some of the practicals of making the videos a little bit later. But moving on from that, once you've got the video, in terms of actually getting it into ClickView. So if you have created a screencast video, you've recorded your computer screen with a PowerPoint or whatever it may be, and you teach into that particular lesson, in your workspace, I'm going to click on Upload a Video. I'm then going to find the particular video file, wherever that happens to live, fill in the details, title and description, give it a rating as well. That determines who has access to it. What you can also do is, if you have a video that is perhaps outlining the requirements for an assessment task. So there might be all of Year 5 and 6, for example, are completing a common assessment task. You can actually attach the assessment task outline and the marking rubric to that video. That means then that anyone who accesses the video also has access to those documents attached to the video as well. Once you've filled in all of that, submit that. That is then in your workspace. You are then able to share that out as needed. So that's one option. You've got the video file, you upload it directly into your workspace. The other option, if we have made a video on our phone or our tablet, we of course need to upload that. The ClickView app for Apple and Android, as well as Windows 10, will allow you to grab the video off your camera roll. So I'm just going to grab this one here. I would normally cast my phone to the laptop, but I've been having some issues with the software that does that. So what I've got here, this is the ClickView app. This is what it looks like. At the bottom here, there is a tab that says My Videos. Now, when I tap that, that takes me into what is in effect my workspace. And just trying to find the next point. Here we go. So this is basically my workspace, but in the app. Now, what I'm going to do next is, in the top right-hand corner, there is a camera icon. When I tap that, that lets me grab. I can then select from my camera roll. And all I need to do then is find on my camera roll where the particular video is that I've recorded. So I've recorded my instructional video on my camera on my phone as normal. In the app, I then tap My Videos and then the camera icon, and I can then just select that app from my camera roll. I would then, of course, fill in the details, give it a title, description, a rating, of course. I would then submit that through. That would be processed, and that would then be available in my workspace as normal. And here is that specific video that was on screen just before. So that's what it will look like. So whether or not you are recording on your computer with a screencast, or whether you are recording on a phone or a tablet with your through the ClickView app using your camera, you can get that into ClickView quite simply and quite easily. Now from here, what you do with that video next will depend slightly on the setup of your school. Now for this, we just need to take a slight detour. So on the Libraries tab, some of you will have a school here at the top, so a custom school library. Now it's probably going to be called the name of your school. So St. Joseph's Alstonville, Grafton, St. Peter's Port Macquarie, whatever it may be, it'll probably just be the name of your school. This is a custom school library that you can contribute to. There will be somebody at your school who is in charge of setting that up, managing that content, and processing requests for videos to be added into that. So this then allows me to make my own content. And here you can see another example. This is just a video I've made on my phone. Excuse me. I've been able to upload that into my workspace and then get it into the school library. So I want to talk through this process. So I've got my video in my school library. I'm going to grab this one here. To get it into my school library, from my workspace into my school library, I need to go options on the right, and then I need to select add to your library. What it will do then is it will ask you to select a folder, and that will be the folder structure that is set up already in your custom school library. So select the folder, choose add. That will go through your school's ClickView administrator, will then process that. Once they've approved it, it's a 2-button click for that person. It will then be immediately available in the custom school library, and you can then share it out as normal and do everything else with it. So that's if you do have a custom school library. If you don't have a custom school library, then on the libraries tab, all you will be seeing is the primary library. If you're at a K-12, you may have the secondary library there as well. So if you don't have a custom school library, what I would encourage you to do is chat to your school's ClickView administrator and ask them if they can get a custom school library set up, particularly at the moment where it's going to be potentially a couple of months before we see our students back in the classroom again. I think it is well worth having a custom school library. There is no additional cost. It is just a matter of having someone set the folder structure up and then approve the requests. So it is a fairly low intensive workload. Now, if you're not sure who your school's ClickView administrator is, get in touch with us. Ask Jack in the chat bar. He'll be able to find that out, or we can follow that up with you afterwards individually if need be. But I would certainly encourage you to do that. If you don't have a custom school library and your school doesn't want to set up a custom school library, that's okay. You can share directly from your workspace, but no one else will have access to those videos except for the people that you share them with. So you can share them with your students, you can share them directly to your colleagues, but you won't be able to share them and have them freely available for your students to log in and browse to. They have to have a link shared by you to get to those videos. So we've made the video, we've uploaded the video into ClickView, and we've shared it to our school library, or we're leaving it in our workspace. What we do next doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to go to my school library though, because once a video is in the school library, every student and every teacher at the school has access to that particular video. Now, I feel that this is a really valuable tool because you can share and leverage everyone's knowledge. I enjoy the arts, but I am pants at teaching the arts. It's not an area that I feel particularly strong in teaching. One of my colleagues that I worked with at my previous school, though, she was amazing, particularly in visual arts. And so if I was still at that school, I would record her, say, hey, can you just record a little instructional video modeling how to create secondary colors or whatever it was that we're looking at. I can then leverage her experience. So my students are still getting really high quality instruction from someone who's really knowledgeable and passionate about the subject. I'm also then getting some professional learning by being able to see how another teacher teach that particular topic or that skill. So I've got the video here. What I can now do is I've got my share button there as normal. I can share that through to Google Classroom. If you're using Google Classroom, I would absolutely encourage you to put the link into your teaching program as well. What we want to do next though, because we're not going to have our students in the room, we need some way, of course, of checking whether or not they're actually looking at the video content. They might say they've looked at it, but we all know that that's a different kettle of fish as to whether or not they actually have. What I would encourage you to do is click on options, and we want to make this an interactive video. Now, in brief, the interactive videos let you put in questions into the videos that pop up on screen and the students have to put a response into. That then also generates data around how much of that video they've actually looked at in the analytics. So what I would encourage you to do is make your instructional video and then make it interactive. Now, if the video is only 30 seconds or a minute, 2 minutes, it's a very basic introductory. What I would suggest is have one question, one question at the end, and all that question says, it's an open response type. What questions do you have after viewing this video? Or summarize your learning from this video, something along those sorts of lines. Because the idea is when we have our students in the quote unquote face-to-face time on the video call, we don't want to be spending that time trying to do the teaching. We can preload all of that information. We can preload the students with the instructional content, with the resources, the activities that they need to work through to gain the understanding. The video call time, we need to think about what's the best use of that time. It's not doing the bottom level of Bloom's taxonomy. It's talking through misunderstandings, misconceptions, talking through errors, talking through the questions that the students have and making the most use out of that. Talking through what do we need to do next to apply that knowledge, to analyze it, to synthesize it. If you can preload the students with an instructional video, if you then have at the end of that video just a simple question along the lines of what questions do you have, or summarize your learning, set a time. Let's say you're having your class Zoom at midday tomorrow. You know, students, you need to have watched this video and responded to the question by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. That then gives you time to look at the responses from the students and look at what they're putting in, work out where are the misconceptions, where are the common questions. Okay, 5 kids have asked the same thing. When you then have all of your students face-to-face on the video call, you can then bring all of that together. Okay, there were a few of you that asked this question. This is the answer to it. There are a few of you that got it wrong. If we're looking at a maths problem, for example, there are a few of you that got the question wrong. This is why you got it wrong, and this is how we need to fix it. So you can deal with a lot of those misconceptions by preloading the data, getting the student responses, and then having that and using that yourself to inform what you are then going to, excuse me, talk through to teach when you have them together face to face. So there's a lot of power and there's a lot of potential in creating your own instructional videos. If it can be recorded once, I would absolutely encourage you to do it. And there is any number of things that you can record, any number of ways that you can do it. Most of us are stuck at home. If you're trying to teach fractions, get someone to hold your phone and bake a cake and talk about fractions while you're baking the cake, because there are lots of little practical examples of things doing there. Talk about measurements, talk about capacity versus volume. There's lots of things that you can do that are practical at home that then make it a little bit more engaging than what you would have access to in a classroom situation. The other part of that is that you can also teach the parents. So I'm 36, and how I learned to do some things in maths, for example, is not the same way as how we are now teaching those things. There is the natural change in language and process over time. And so if you've got students whose parents, didn't learn things the way that we're now teaching them, you can then give the parents that teaching as well. I was the kind of kid where I get home, I'd sit down to do my homework and I wouldn't have a clue what I was supposed to be doing. I understood the concepts in class, but it exited stage left between leaving the classroom and getting home. Neither of my parents finished high school, so I'd sit down and say, hey mum, can you help me with this? And mum would say, no, I can't, because I don't know. My parents were kind of useless. I love them to death, but they were kind of useless in that regard. If we've got these little instructional videos, here is how we are now teaching how to do 2-digit multiplication, as an example. Mum or dad or grandma or whoever it is that's looking after the child at home can then take that knowledge, that video, oh, okay, I can see what they're doing. I can see what you are doing as my child, why you're getting it wrong. This is what we need to do. They can use their general world knowledge to pull that information through once you've then given them the basics of how we are now teaching things. There's a little bit of time invested up front, of course, in making these videos, but I think the benefits in the long run are incredibly powerful. Now, just coming back to the actual process of making these, there's a few things to keep in mind. There's a very much perception that I hear from teachers that the videos have to be perfect, these amazing whiz-bang Hollywood productions. That is absolutely not the case. As long as your voice is clear and audible, you can actually get away with quite low production values. That first video, for example, all it was is I've held my phone over a piece of paper and I've done the letter formation. Very, very simple, very, very low tech. This is another example. Let's just mute for that. Again, very low tech. I've held my phone over the piece of paper. The teacher has done the demonstration. Very, very low level. It's not a whiz-bang Hollywood production. It doesn't need to be. The idea is that I need to get it right. It needs to be perfect. No, you do not need to get it perfect. You never have a perfect lesson. I can't remember a single lesson where I walked out and thought, yeah, I nailed that. I didn't make a single mistake. I didn't get any of my words muddled up. I didn't accidentally add some numbers incorrectly. It just doesn't happen. You don't, in the classroom, you don't get to say, hang on, just pause, rewind, I need to redo that. So why would you do that here? Own the mistake. It humanizes us. And it also teaches the kids that it's okay to make mistakes. There's a lot of anxiety in our kids these days around they have to get it right. They don't like making mistakes. I banned students from using erasers in my classroom because it just encouraged this, it has to be perfect mentality. Own the mistake and move on. The next one that I hear feedback about a lot is in two parts. The first one is I don't like how I sound on camera and I don't like how I look on camera. To the first part, if you don't like how you sound on camera, that's unfortunate because your kids are stuck with your voice anyway. Your voice is your voice and your kids have to listen to it every day. I'm sure we're all aware that how we hear ourselves is not how others hear us. We just need to get over it. I know that's really blunt, but we really do just need to get over it and move on. The first time I sat down to create a video, we're going several years ago now, that very first time between saying, yep, I'm going to make a video and sitting down and going to hit record, it took me about 4 or 5 minutes to actually hit record. Just getting over that first hurdle that, oh my goodness, am I actually going to do this? It gets easier. I'm at a point now where I can, and have been for quite a while, where I can sit down, hit record, bang, 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 punch out half a dozen videos and not worry about it. You've just got to put that voice that says you sound like an idiot, you sound like a moron, you just got to put it in a little box and shut the lid. It does get easy with practice. The other one around, I don't like how I look on camera. I think at the moment, given that everyone's supposed to be staying at home, although New South Wales is a little bit weird at the moment with the whole 1 day a week thing. Don't know what's going on there. I think it's more important than ever that your face is in the video. The idea is that it's that relationship piece. If you're in Victoria, for example, and Jack, I believe Queensland is the same. There's no school. It's all virtual at the moment. If you're not going to have your students in the room for 3 months, until July, they need to see you. You might do your video calls, a couple of times a week, depending on what you're doing at your school. But they need to see you. They need that relationship. It's one of the most powerful tools that we have as teachers, is that relationship with our children. And putting your face and your voice in that video is more important than ever, because when our students come back, we don't have to start from scratch. We've been able to maintain that relationship piece. We've kept that ticking over. We've kept that going. And it also helps build relationships with parents. I know that there are some parents where when you have to call them, it's not a nice thing. And there are some parents where you look forward to calling because they're just really great to deal with. Putting your face in the video normalizes you to the parents. I know I had a lot of parents with some of my kids where the parents' experience of school wasn't great. And so they didn't enjoy dealing with school. And so if you can normalize yourself and normalize that teaching and learning process for them at home, it just lowers that barrier and just makes and helps ease that process of engaging with the parents a little bit. I would absolutely implore you, as much as you possibly can, have your face and your voice in the video as much as you can. I think it's more important than ever for that relationship piece, that mental health and wellbeing piece for our students, and just to normalise and try and get a little bit of clarity and consistency in what we're doing over the next couple of months. Sorry, I'll step down off my high horse. It's a little bit of a passion of mine is that particular piece. The next thing I want to talk about is the duration of the videos. So you've noticed that, or you may have noticed that the videos that I've showed you as examples of instructional videos today have all been very short. This one on screen is 38 seconds. The woodworking one was 1:11, I think it was. Yes.
Sorry, just quickly before we move off, are you able to, just based on a couple of questions we've got, are you able to just press play on an interactive video so we can see what it looks like when the questions pop up?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
Let me just find one that I've got. Here we go. So this is what the interactives look like. So the markers here along the timeline, they represent where each of the questions are. The video will play through until it reaches a marker, it pauses, and then the question pops up on the right-hand side. So the idea is you would create your instructional video, you would put questions in here, depending of course on what you're trying to achieve with the video, you would put questions in, and then the students would respond to those in the video. Now let me just mute this. So as a student, this is just an annotation, some extra information. It could be a signpost. Please pay attention to XYZ, or learning intention. We are learning to, whatever it may be, in success criteria. As a student at home, I hit save and continue. In the background, it records that I have viewed that particular instruction. It carries on playing, it reaches the next question, it pauses, the question pops up. So from a multiple choice perspective, I'm going to click in that I think that's the correct response. I'm going to hit save and continue, and then it carries on. So with the question types, you've got an annotation, which was that first one. That could just be some extra information, a link out to an external resource in a OneDrive or a Google Drive, something of that nature. You've got multiple choice, true, false, and the good old-fashioned close passage, the missing word option. Those three are all auto-marked as well. You also have the option to put in an image. So in this particular video, they're talking about a piece of art, but there is of course no context. It's horrible histories, it's just part of the sight gag. So the image type lets me put in this case, an image of that from online, and then in the caption, I've been able to put the background, in this case, of where the artwork came from. So you could use it for that sort of supplementary information piece. I've seen this used, there was a class I was working with, they were looking at, trying to think what it was, they were looking at cyclones, I think it was, just after one of the cyclones hit far north Queensland. The image was an outline map of Australia, and the caption was, where did Cyclone X, I can't remember which one it was, where did Cyclone X touch down? And then in that particular class, that then drove a think, pair, share routine. So there's a lot of flexibility around these. And then the last one, of course, is just a fairly basic open response. So this is the one where I would suggest that you would have your basic instructional video. At the end of that video, have a question that is something along the lines of, what questions do you still have, or summarize your learnings, or maybe even both, just to capture that knowledge before you then get together with the class on your video call. So I hope that clarifies some questions around what that actually looks like for everyone. If it hasn't, please continue to send the questions through, and Jack will keep responding to those. Now, just going back, what was I talking about so making the videos. So a lot of the videos that I've shown, the examples of these instructional videos, have been quite short. The screencast video that I showed you is the longest one at 3 minutes 48. The idea is that you want the videos to be really simple. One thing per video, one concept, one skill, one piece of information. Because for the students then that need to hear things or see things multiple times, they can jump back and watch the single video that they need to review the particular thing they're looking at. So as a student, I struggled with maths. I'd sit down and I would go, okay, I need to review how to do 3-digit multiplication, just as an example. Rather than having to watch a single video that's 40 minutes and where in here is the part that talks about what I need, I can watch the 3-minute video that just talks about what I need. So it makes it easy for the students to go back and review. For yourself, it makes that a more long-term usable resource, because it then means that when you get to 3-digit multiplication next year, you've got that resource ready to go. Reshare that out as it is. You don't have to remake it each year. You've got that as a long-term resource. So you want the videos nice and short. It helps you keep them concise in terms of one idea, one concept, one skill. It makes them easy for the students to engage with as well, because if you say to a kid, I need you to watch these 4 1-minute videos. Yeah, no worries. They will watch all 4 1-minute videos and they will watch all of the video. Whereas if you say, I need you to watch this 10-minute video, they'll watch part of it. They probably won't watch all of it though. There's a fair bit of research around looking at YouTube analytics around the duration of the video as opposed to how much of the video has been looked at. And there is a really, really significant drop off at about the 5 to 6 minute mark. So beyond that point, between, I think from memory, it was between 5 to 15 minutes, there's a really massive drop off. And beyond that, it rises.
Brendan, so for primary students, it's a drop off from 90% to a 40% completion rate at about 4-minute mark. So they take 2 to 4 minutes. And for secondary age students, it's at the 6-minute mark, you see that drop off.
Yeah, so that's a massive, massive drop off. The longer video, so if it's a documentary or a webinar or something like that, specifically, this is going to be a long video. Those are slightly higher, but for our context, for primary students, we do not want to be doing those videos. There is no value for us or for our students in doing those longer videos. So a general rule of thumb, and it's a rule of thumb, so take it with a grain of salt, the video should be a maximum 1 minute per academic year group. So if you've got a student in year 6, the absolute maximum that video should be is 6 minutes duration. Again, as Jack has said, I would encourage you to keep them shorter as much as you possibly can. Chunk things out as much as you can as well. And that will then help you make the videos nice and concise, keep them short. It also lessens the chances that you're going to make a mistake. So it means that, you know, if you are someone who is very much, I need it perfect, it just takes some of that pressure off. It's harder to make a mistake in 2 minutes as opposed to 10 minutes, for example. So keep them as short as possible. Name them fairly consistently. Make the title of the video quite descriptive as much as you can as well. That makes it easier for you down the track to identify the particular video that you need. It also makes it easy for the students when they're going through reviewing the videos to work out which one do they need to look at if they're doing some study beyond what you've shared to them specifically. Make them short. One idea, one concept, one skill per video. Make them interactive and have that question at the end. What are your questions, or summarize your learnings to capture that understanding of the students, identify those misconceptions, and then use the start of that video call time with all of those students to address whatever the issues are that have come up, the common mistakes, the common misconceptions. Address those at the start of that video call time with your students. I think that you will get much more value out of that video call time using that approach than opposed to sitting down, okay, everyone, welcome to the lunchtime lesson. We're going to look at how to do 2-digit multiplication, and you just teach as you would in the classroom. Because as you would in the classroom, there are going to be kids that will switch off. I'm sure that many of you have seen the memes and the things doing the rounds around about the lengths that students are going to pretend that they're looking at the video, at the Zoom call or the video call. There's lots of kids that are getting photos of themselves, attaching them to a stick and having that sitting in front of the webcam, and it's, yes, I'm there watching the video. If you've got 30 kids in the class, you're not necessarily going to pick up that that student has had the exact same facial expression the entire time if they've got their video camera, their webcam on. So make them short, make them interactive with that question to capture students' understandings and misconceptions at the end. Make them either as a screencast or on your phone, depending on what it is and what you're comfortable with doing, what you have access to, and then share those out to your students using whatever methods you are at the moment in terms of getting content to students. Continue to use those.
Brendan,
Yes.
just based on a few of the questions we're getting through, can you work through an example of, say, grabbing a piece of existing content, like Exchange content from that library,
Sure.
clipping it down and then adding the questions? There's just a few about how we actually do it, and in light of reducing the length of a video, how can we actually work with something that's got some length to it already?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm just going to grab this one here just because it happens to be on the page in front of me. So this is a doco, near enough an hour and a half. I don't want to use the whole hour and a half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go interactive videos, and I'm going to go create an interactive. So let's say I've got a documentary or I've got an episode of BTN, and I love that that's still getting used in the classroom. There's a particular 5-minute snippet that I really want to focus on. I don't care about the rest of it. I just want my kids to look at the particular 5-minute snippet.
Side note, for everyone's benefit, on BTN, in our the primary library, there's a little interview that BTN have done with ScoMo about COVID.
Oh, that's a good one
to use. Yeah, I found it this morning.
Nice. BTN have been amazing, as always, with putting a lot of things in there around COVID that are student accessible. They do such a good job. So I've got a 5-minute snippet in here that I want my students to look at. Not worried about the rest, I just want them to look at this 5 minutes. So I've opened the video up, I've gone create interactive. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the start of the section that I want. So let's say this is the start of the section that I want. I'm going to click on an annotation and I'm going to put in start watching here, save. So there's a marker. So when I then share this through to my kids, I say, click to the first marker, start watching from that point. I might put a couple of questions through the 5 minutes that I want them to look at, but at the end of it, at the end of the section that I want them to focus on, I'm going to click on annotation and I'm going to put stop watching here, save. And those two markers make it very, very clear then for the students what they need to actually look at. So your instructions when you share this through to your learning management system would be click to the first marker and start watching from that point and stop watching at the point where the video tells you to stop watching. Obviously, you can put additional questions during the actual video. So you might have some multiple choice or true, false, whatever is appropriate for what you are trying to achieve. But if you've got a longer video and you just want to focus on a particular section, that would be the best option to do that. So from here, I've got other questions in place that I'm happy with. I'm going to go save and continue. I may or may not give that an additional title or give that a description. If you've got questions in there that you want students to get their feedback, so the true, false, multiple choice, and the missing word, and you want them to get feedback whether or not they've got those questions correct, you can tick that box and that will enable that automatic feedback. Save and continue. With the interactives, if you want other teachers to be able to access them, you need to choose the yes, make available. I'm just going to go keep private because obviously it's a bit of a dummy one. I've then got straight away a share link for that video that specifies here is the section that I want you to watch out of the whole thing with a couple of questions in between. I can put that link into my teaching program. I can share it through to Google Classroom. The video itself remains the same duration that it was. We've just taken the actual video. We haven't changed the actual video itself. All we've done is specify by putting in the start watching here and stop watching here markers, the section that we want our students to look at. That's all we've done. So I hope that that clarifies some of those questions that have come through from everyone. If it hasn't, if people still have a few questions, please do continue to send them through. Jack, is there any other common themes?
Yeah, the main existing question probably is just around the library. So we've had questions about like that stuff in the primary library, the stuff we make existing content. So can we do the same thing with those?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
And then also just what the analytics look like, how that works.
Brilliant. So I'll go through both of those. So every video on the libraries tab, whether it sits in the ClickView primary library or whether it sits in your custom school library, if you have one, every video can be made interactive and then shared out to students. So whether it is a instructional video that you or a colleague has made, whether it is a documentary, an episode of Behind the News or My Place, Place Called Storytime, any video can be made interactive. The questions that you put in there is completely up to you. It's very much what do you need out of that video for your students. If you need to put the start watching here, stop watching here markers, put those in and then put in any additional questions between those as appropriate. If you've just got a shorter video, make the interactive as normal. So every video can be made interactive and you can put those start and stop watching markers in as needed wherever is appropriate. So I hope that helps for the people who had questions around that. In terms of the analytics, so all of the analytics for the interactives live within ClickView. So I'm going to go to my workspace. In your workspace, there is an interactive videos folder. Any interactive video that you have created, or that if you saved a copy of an existing one, they will live in here. So here's all of my interactives that I've put together. I can then obviously view the results. I can share them out. And I've got a few other options here in terms of actually looking at the analytics and what they look like. So I'm going to click on view results for this one here. Now, the top section is going to give you some basic summary information. Now, this is just me putting in some responses here. So the data does look a little bit funny. Just to give you a bit of an overview, this blue box will only appear if you've used the short answer question type. Now, the bottom half is where it gets interesting. So let's say we've got a class of 30. The left-hand side, it'll actually rank the questions in terms of how well the class responded to them as a whole. So each question, out of your 30 kids, 25 of them got it correct and 5 of them got it wrong. It'll give you that indicator here, 25 out of 30 or whatever the numbers may be. So it'll rank them from worst rate of response at the top to best rate of response at the bottom. So straight away, I can see, well, hang on, I need to reteach this concept because no one got it correct. Gives me that red flag that I really need to address that again. Or if I'm using this as a diagnostic, 2 weeks before I start a new unit, here's an intro video with some general questions. I can say, oh, I need to spend more time on this part than I thought I would and less time on that. Again, you can use that assessment for learning as opposed to assessment of learning. Now, the right-hand side is your student-specific information. So this will give me, for each student that has completed the questions, it will show me how many attempts they've had and what their average score is. Now, it will only show their name if they've actually completed the interactive. So I can see here only 3 names, which means that the other 25 kids in my class haven't completed it. So straight away, that's a red flag. Hey, why haven't you completed these questions? Gives you that bit of a summary right up the top. Now I'm going to click on Admiral Akbar's name here. You can tell I enjoy a bit of sci-fi. This gives you some basic information. It gives you the question, the correct response, and then the student response. True, false, multiple choice, and missing word are all auto-marked, so they will have the ticks and crosses. NA, of course, is a no response, and the short answer one you'll have to mark yourself up the top here. You have access, and you're not going to go into this level of detail for every student, but you have access to every attempt that a student has had. So if you've got one student that's had 10 attempts, you can look at each of those 10 attempts if you wanted to go to that level. Now, where it gets really interesting, I'm just going to zoom this in a little bit. Where are we? So on the timeline here, you can see the markers that represent the questions, and you can see that some parts of the timeline are orange and some parts of the timeline are black. Now, the parts that are orange are the parts of the video the student actually watched when they were completing these questions. So if you have sent home a documentary, for example, and you've put a start watching here, stop watching here marker, you would expect that everything before the start watching marker would be black because they haven't watched it. Everything after the stop watching here marker would be black because they haven't watched it. And everything between those 2 markers should be orange because they should have watched the entire thing. If they haven't, you can see that. Now, you will only have a couple of kids in any given class that you'll need to check up on, and you'll know exactly who they are. But like anything, set some expectations. Make an interactive, complete the interactive yourself, but skip through some parts of the video and then show them, this is my attempt at the interactive. These are the parts that I watched. These are the parts that I skipped. If you skip them, I will know. It's a little bit big brothery, but it works. It has some purpose. It has some results. It's not going to sort all of the kids out. There are kids who will be contrary just for the sake of being contrary. That was me as a kid. But it'll sort a lot of the students out. I do know some teachers that have said they've used that data for parent-teacher conversations. That's up to you, of course, but you can use it in that way as well. Now, I'm conscious of time. Jack, are there any sort of common themes that have come through that I haven't addressed at this point?
If we could just run through the print as a worksheet option, and then it might just be worthwhile. Ben, you might be able to comment, but I know it's a bit different between primary and secondary within CENET. But do you guys use Canvas and Teams much with the primary, or is it mostly Google?
It's mostly Google.
Okay,
Yeah, so
all right. I'll save the other stuff for the Savo with the secondaries.
Brilliant. So the printers worksheet option that Jack was alluding to. So every interactive has, if I go options here, print as worksheet, gives me a formatted printable worksheet. Now, this is going to be really useful in a lot of different contexts. In the current situation, if you've got students who don't have internet access at home, if mum and dad or if the child has a device, grab the ClickView app. the ClickView app has a function in it that will allow them to download the video to be viewed offline, and you can then maybe just print out and mail post to them, or you can post this in Google Classroom. No, you won't be able to do it because I don't have internet at home. Mail this out to them perhaps, or arrange for it to be dropped off to them somehow, and they can still complete the questions. It gives you that option to get that information to them, those resources to them. In a classroom context, particularly for the younger year groups where it just may be too much hassle to be getting a class of 25 kindergarten kids all trying to log on, you might set up one laptop in the back corner of the room with a listening post style setup, a dock with half a dozen sets of headphones. One of the kids hits play, they all know how to do that, and then they work through these questions. The video still pauses at the points, but instead of putting the response into the interactive, they would put their response onto this worksheet, and you can then obviously go through and mark those. So every interactive video will have one of these by default. It's auto-generated. So to get to that, we go Options, Print as Worksheet, and you can then hand that out and use that as needed.
The other thing that's probably just worth noting, Brendan, and I've been seeing it a bit more with this online space, is you do have students where the traditional interactive of surprise, this is what you were looking for that time, doesn't sort of work. They need to know ahead of time the information that they should be listening for. So when we do provide those time-stamped worksheets, even if they are doing the video on the computer screen, they can have that printout there knowing that I'm paying attention for the next 30 seconds. And before I get to 1 minute 19, this is the information I'm listening for. So
I would always advocate, put a signpost at the start of the video, here are the learning intentions, or this is what you need to get out of the video.
Yeah, so I've just found a lot of schools are providing students that PDF as a matter of course, as well as the video.
Brilliant. Well, I believe we're almost out of time. Ben, Jack, is there any last questions we haven't addressed at this point, or any sort of common themes?
I think we've got through most of it. I'm sure someone will let us know if we missed anything.
Brilliant. So you can always get in touch with any office at any point. If you know who your school's ClickView advisor is, you can get in touch with them directly. Otherwise, if you email info@clickview.com.au, INFO, they'll be able to put you in touch with the right person. If you're Maitland, Newcastle, Broken Bay, Bathurst, Armidale, Lismore, it'll be myself. And Jack, who do you work with?
Cairns, Townsville.
Yep, brilliant. So there you go. So if you're in any of those, where your go-tos.
If you also teach secondary, we're running one secondary specific survey. Brilliant.
So thank you everyone for your time. Best of luck over the next couple of, well, goodness knows how long this is going to run for. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane. Ben, thank you very much for allowing us to join you today and share some of our knowledge with you.
No, thank you, Brendan, and thank you, Jack. It's been fantastic having you present that, and ClickView is just a fantastic tool, especially as we navigate remote learning.
Sorry, Brendan,
also,
can you just ask, Amanda and I were just asking, who's in charge of Parramatta? Because we're both from Parramatta Diocese.
Yeah, Parramatta is a bit of a funny one. So you're actually at the intersection of three of us. So depending on which school you are, you could be myself, you could be Alicia, or you could be another one of our colleagues, Sarah. So maybe if you want to flick me an email and just let me know exactly which school you're at, I'll put you in touch with the relevant person if it's not.
Do I send it to your email or the info@ClickView?
Either way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, yes. So thank you to Brendan and Jack. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We do have the feedback form, which can be found on the website as well. It'd be great if we can get some feedback. So QR code, scan that, or put in the bit.ly. That'd be great. And the next lot of sessions that are coming up, we've got Advanced Screencastify with Mark Woolley. We've got Create Self-Marking Quizzes with Chris Betcher from Google, and then the secondary version of what we've just watched if you are teaching across both primary and secondary. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you again to Brendan and Jack. Wonderful. Thank you.